Hi, everybody. Welcome to this webinar. The webinar today is sponsored and powered by WayMaker Digital. In today's session, we will be discussing the government digital service and an understanding of the project phases within the government digital service. For those who are yet to follow us or subscribe to our channel, you can do so by subscribing to our channel on YouTube and Facebook. And don't forget to click on the bell so that you get an alert every time we have an event or a webinar like this. You can also follow or like our page on Facebook at WayMaker Digital. Thank you. A bit of introduction about myself. My name is Victor Sunday. I am very passionate about leadership excellence. I'm passionate about digital innovation, and I love to solve complex business problems with simple, tested, and human-centric solutions. In my role at WayMaker Digital, I'm responsible for product management, user experience design and research, agile coaching for our clients, and I look after end-to-end delivery for cloud solutions, digital transformation, and enterprise agile adoption across business change, leadership, and culture. I have worked across different clients within the UK public sector and also in the private sector. My experience has covered the entire phases of agile delivery, from discovery to alpha to beta and to live. Okay, so I will be talking to you today about, as a continuation from our last session, about some other phases. So if you missed the last session, I would encourage you to please go on the YouTube channel and then you can catch up. We covered some of the session as covered a lot of the content from the last time. So today is a continuation of where we stopped. And our agenda today is just to recap about the introduction, some of the things we discussed the last time. I will also do a bit of recap on the alpha phase. I know we touched on some of this already. And then I will talk about the beta phase. And then we go on to the live phase as well. Okay, introductions first. About WayMaker Digital, we are a software development and product delivery consultancy. Our expertise covers product research, market research, delivery, user experience design, digital marketing, and technology consulting. So we also provide recruitment services and expertise and supply of expertise and skill specialists within the private and the public sector in the UK. If you want to work with us, you want to be a part of our network, or you want to make an inquiry, please feel free to give us a call on the number on the screen. And also you can send us an email and somebody will definitely be available to speak with you or reach out to you to understand and take your request. Okay, some of the partners that we work with, this slide is updating, but yeah, we are a G Cloud supplier. We work with Amazon Web Services. We are in the Microsoft Partner Network, some of our training and our coaching programs. We teach on Scrum and a few other agile methodologies, and also digital marketing. All right. So let's get into the session today. An introduction about the government digital service. So the GDS for short is a part of the cabinet office that focuses on digital transformation of government. The GDS was established primarily as a center of excellence in digital technology and data, and also to ensure that they collaborate with government departments to help them with their own transformation as well. So essentially, the GDS works with government departments to build platforms, services, standards, and products that are, user-facing or for the citizen, so to speak. The work that the GDS does in terms of their objective is not just about, building websites. Among many things, the GDS work with publics, they make public services simpler and better. Also, they build platforms and services like, for example, the gov.uk Verify, which is a way to confirm that users are who they say they are. So that is one of the products from the GDS, one of the services provided by the GDS or built by the GDS. They also work to ensure that government data is good data and usable for everybody. The GDS helps departments to make better informed decisions, especially when they're trying to buy technology, okay? And they provide technology tools for departments, government departments and their employees to provide value, especially in terms of tools, and make sure that there's not less of a barrier in the way that the government department staff work. So those are the sort of objectives at a very high level of the GDS. Now, it's important that we talk about this because the GDS also, as part of their remit, produce guidance and content and frameworks to ensure that there is consistency and there's a lot of uniformity in how government services are delivered and to the public, and they make sure that they're usable for the public. So the agile delivery framework from the GDS is in 4 phases, which we covered earlier. The first phase is the discovery phase, and then we have the alpha phase, the beta phase, which is kind of split into, it's actually in 2 variants. We have the private beta and the public beta. We'll talk about that shortly. And then there's a live phase, which is almost the last phase. There's a retirement phase, which I will not go into today, but essentially the live phase is when your service goes live. And then the retirement phase, we'll talk about that maybe at a later session, which is basically retiring a service when you know that it's no longer in use, or there's an alternative service that is better or better used or better solves the problem of the users of the service. But let's go into a bit more detail. So during discovery, we covered this last time. You conduct a lot of user research in order to understand the needs of the users. The key question you're going to be asking in discovery is, do we need to build something? Is there actually a problem here at all? If there is a problem here, what is that problem? And do we actually need to develop anything in order to address that problem? Because discovery is to understand whether there is a need to progress, or there is a benefit, or there is a solution that can better address or better support or better help the users to achieve their goals, or remove any pain that they're having, or any challenge they're having in whatever space it is you're covering. If at the end of discovery, like we said, you agree and you recommend that the project should go to alpha, then in alpha, the focus is about developing and testing prototypes, testing prototypes and looking at viability with stakeholders. And then you move into the private beta phase or the public beta phase, and then the live phase. And in the beta phase, what we're doing is actually developing and testing at a larger scale. This is where we do iterative development. We are testing on quality, security, and a few other things which we'll discuss shortly. And then we move into the live phase after the GDS assessment has been approved, and then we can progress forward. This image, of course, is the digital by default process, which was first produced by the GDS in 2013. Now, I would like to go into the alpha phase. So we've covered discovery. We covered a bit of alpha the last time, but I'd like to cover a little bit more around alpha and then talk about the beta phase. So let's talk about the alpha phase. The focus or the objective for alpha is to try out different solutions to the problems and the user needs that have been identified during discovery. So this is where you begin to spend time in building prototypes on testing different ideas. Yeah, the ideas that could address the challenges or the pain point of the users. This idea or these problems or these challenges would have been identified or recognized as part of your discovery. And the encouragement to the focus here is that the alpha team should not be afraid to challenge the way things are done. This is the opportunity for the team to explore new approaches. And it does not necessarily mean that you have to prototype the entire user journey, but you might want to prototype a part of it, some element of it. And sometimes it makes sense during this phase to focus on the areas that you think will be the most difficult, because the idea here is to explore new approaches and test your riskiest assumptions. Test your riskiest. This is the phase where you test your riskiest assumptions. Alpha phase tend to last between typically 6 to 8 weeks, depending on what it is, depending on the scale or the scope of the problem you're trying to solve. Ideally, before you finish your alpha, it's important that you book your alpha assessment with the GDS team, which is an opportunity for you to present your work in alpha and get an approval or get a recommendation or get a feedback on the work you've done and whether you are going to proceed into the next phase or not. In the alpha phase, there are some important skills that the team would need to have in order to be able to execute or achieve the objectives during alpha. They need skills to explore ideas, they need skills to build prototypes, let me be like UX design or interaction design skills. They need skills to solve other problems, potentially even have a developer and engineer that could run some investigative development or some spikes, so to in agile speak time, to investigate a problem area and identify potential solutions to those problems. And also, this is the time that you want to begin to validate your assumptions. So you need skills to validate. You need a lot of research skills to gather data, carry out research, usability testing, a lot of interviews to prove your hypothesis, basically, to prove your hypothesis and validate your assumptions, okay? In terms of the skills and the capacities for alpha, you probably will be talking about, depending on the size and the complexity of the service, you would have maybe a product manager, you will have a product manager, not maybe, a product manager, a delivery manager, user researcher or user researchers, content designers, interaction designers, a developer or a technical lead, perhaps, and you won't start talking about accessibility, okay? Potentially also during alpha, you may also need to, do some business analysis, you could use some agile coaching to support your ways of working as well. So that's pretty much the kind of skills that are required or needed for an alpha phase. In terms of priorities during alpha, I mentioned before that majority or the key focus of alpha is to identify and test your riskiest assumptions. You want to meet the service standard requirements for alpha, which are you want to test for accessibility. You want to make sure that the user journey is covered in terms of scope. You want to make sure that whatever part of this, whatever the scope of your service is how does it fit? How does it join up into the user's wider journey. So for example, if you're talking about how, if the wider space is about benefits, claiming benefits, and you are just focused on your service just focused on the payment. The user's journey is beyond payment. The user will need to file in and then submit the request or fill in their claim, and then somebody has to do the processing. Another department has to do the vetting or data gathering, and then somebody has to do the payment approvals before it gets to your service, which is about the payment. Now, how does your part of the service join up with the bigger or the wider journey? That all that needs to be fleshed out as part of your alpha. And then you want to make sure that you're solving a whole problem for users during alpha. This is one of the very important point in the standard that says that you want to solve a whole problem for users. Remember, during the last session, we talked about 7 standards, the 14 standards, yeah? So one of them is number 2, actually, specifically, talks about solving a whole problem for users. So yes, it's important to get the scope of your part of the journey right within alpha, and make sure that your service is joining up correctly and joining up nicely with the user's wider journey. Okay, so this is where you start doing a lot of journey map, service mapping, customer journey maps. You'll be doing story mapping to make sure that you can see how the bigger picture, how what you're doing ties into the bigger picture. Also, you want to be looking at a lot of consistency in design, consistency in design patterns and workflows that is being adopted. Also, in terms of also the technology stack as well. You want to make sure that in that space you're working, what kind of tools and development tools are being used in the wider, journey that we can leverage on to use, and also make sure that there is less friction in the way that we work together, or the way we solve a whole problem for users. So yes, alpha is when you do all of that. Okay. In terms of what you do in alpha, is important that you want to start building the right relationships with other people working in the same area, like I said, because you want to make sure that your service joins up nicely. So you want to check whether there is for example, is there a service community for this whole service that we need to be a part of? Is there a forum where we can, we can connect to identify the key players or stakeholders in this space? These are all the kind of things that you do during the alpha phase, as in terms of priorities. I mentioned this earlier, but I'll cover this quickly again. Job functions or roles in the alpha phase are like delivery manager, product manager, user researchers, or content designers, and UX designers or interaction designers, technical architect. You could have some web developers as well, and also very, very important, accessibility. You need to have an accessibility in your team. In my experience, most of the time, you either have someone dedicated to accessibility, or that role is actually shared between the product manager and the team, actually, between the team, with the product manager being ultimately responsible. Ideally, by the end of alpha, you want to make sure that you have an idea, a clear idea of what your beta would look like, and also what your team for beta will look like. Let's talk about some artifacts, some outcomes from alpha, okay? The first one I have on my list is to have a beta proposal or a beta plan. Yes, so when you're getting towards the end of your alpha, your delivery manager and your service owner or product owner will need to start putting together a proposal for beta. And your proposal for beta will cover things like the scope of the work, will cover things like resources, budget, timescales, people needed or skills needed in the team, and a few other things that come together in order to be able to secure approval that the team or the service is progressing from the alpha phase into the beta phase. It's important to have a plan for beta. Also, you need to have a prototype or like a working prototype, which is essentially like a solution that you've identified as one that solves the problem for the users, a technical scope or some sort of architecture, pattern, or design, a product backlog, something to start with for beta, containing maybe some user stories and a few other things there that the team can get cracking on with as soon as you move into alpha. Also, I mentioned earlier, you could have a service map as well, which is basically the map of the entire service versus how your service fits into the wider journey. So you could have service map, customer journey maps, and a few other type of artifacts in that shape or form. Accessibility requirements, okay. How are we going to make sure that our service is inclusive, is accessible, and also how do we measure success, okay? What are the success metrics? How do we know that we've succeeded? What are the KPIs that we're going to be looking at? Like I mentioned earlier, beta team and the skills or the capacity and the people needed in order to be able to move into beta. All right, at the end of alpha, moving the end of alpha, that's the type of that. So moving to beta means that, so that should be moving to beta, means that you have a substantial prototype. It basically means you have a solution concept that addresses the user's needs and the available resources, skills, excuse me, and budget required to deliver it. So you know that your alpha is finished when you've got a prototype that is substantial enough to help you make a decision about whether you want to move on to the beta phase or not. In fact, as part of that, you should be confident that you can create something that meets the needs of the users, something that is cost effective. And also you should be able to explain how you came to this decision using things like your success metrics, yeah, that you identified during discovery. Yeah, so these are the things you should be able to tell your story from how things have evolved from discovery all the way to alpha, and this is how your plan is looking like towards beta. If you get to the end of alpha and you still are not confident, yeah, that you could do this thing, then you need to stop. Also, you could stop actually. You could stop and you could decide to repeat discovery again or repeat alpha again. The idea is not to proceed until you have that level of confidence, right? Cool. Before I move on, I'm going to talk, okay, let's talk about the beta phase now, and then we'll talk about the announcement, all right? This is the beta phase, right? In beta, we build and we refine our options. The focus during beta phase is to start developing your best solution idea that you came up with during the alpha phase. Yeah. The main priority here in beta phase, once we move from alpha, is to begin to create a simple, clear, fast service while the team focus on working towards live operation. So in terms of what we do during beta, we focus on making sure that the solution that we have chosen as a team, it works as well as possible by carrying out user research, and we begin to gather data on how successful the service is based on the success metrics that we've identified. So this phase also involves working out how the new service we are building will integrate or start to replace existing services or components that exist in that space already. So it's time to begin to look at, okay, this service we are building, how are we integrating it with existing technology stack or frameworks? that exist there in that space? Or how are they replacing the things, the legacy applications that are there, or systems that are there, or processes that are there? What are we replacing? How are we replacing those with a new service? And this is the time we also prepare for transitioning into the live phase. The kind of team that you need is for beta is quite similar to that of alpha, but just a bit more variant in terms of the focus. So the key ones that I've added here are like the performance analyst, the quality assurance analyst, or maybe test analyst, and also maybe some business analyst as well. So here, the focus is that you want to make sure that whatever you are building quality into the application. Also, you are building security. You want to make sure that the user's data is, their content, their information is safe. You're making sure that the service is actually also safe to use. So quality is very, very crucial. Accessibility is very important as well. So some of the key considerations during beta phase are things like I said, iterative development. So in this phase, you begin to talk about frameworks for delivery, like maybe it is Scrum or Kanban or Scrumban or whatever framework it is you want to use, but you want to make sure that you continually iterate the solution, and you are iterating the solution based on the data that you are gathering, the feedback you are getting from user research, and continuously testing the application or testing the solution, both within the team and also with your users. You want to focus or consider security of the service. You want to work in an open way, open source coding. You want to use open source technology. This is very important. This is one of the key elements of the service standard as well. This is where you need to make sure that your team is engaging and collaborating well together, not just within the team, also with relevant players or other teams that are within the wider service area. During this phase, you are looking at the technology stack, from the front-end development to middleware, APIs, and back-end services. What kind of tools are we using? What's the sustainability of the approach we're taking? What's our architecture design pattern? How do we make sure that we can sustain and maintain that? How are we integrating in terms of tooling with the existing applications and tools within the service area that we're working? How consistent are we? How sustainable are we? How flexible, and also how cost effective is our approach? So these are the things that you begin to consider during the beta phase. And then, of course, you want to bake testing, and you want to bake quality testing into your approach. So are we doing manual testing? Are we doing automated testing? How are we testing? Are we testing integration with other services? API testing and a few other things like that. So these are the important things and considerations and conversations that you need to have and focus on during the beta phase. Yeah. Now, rolling the service out to users in beta. So there are two elements to this. As part of rolling out or exposing your service to users in beta, as you build it and you're iterating and making it, improving on it, you want to structure your beta phase such that you are able to roll out the service to real users, whilst minimizing risk and maximizing potential to learn and iterate the service. Okay, I'll say that again. You want to structure your beta phase, in such a way that you are able to roll out, expose the service to real users while minimizing risk. You're minimizing risk, and you're maximizing the ability or the potential to learn and iterate the service. Okay, so you want to make sure that the service team has the capacity to sustain that learning and iteration throughout the beta period. And you want to make sure that there is also support available throughout the beta period for the team to cope with new users who might be struggling, to use your new service in a ways that you have not envisaged. So the idea or the ideal thing is to start in what we call private beta. Okay, you start in private beta, and private beta basically involves inviting a limited number of people to use the new service so you can get feedback from them, and then you can use the feedback to improve the service. Okay, so you involve in a select limited number of people to use your new service with the intention that you will be getting data and getting feedback and insights from those users that are those private beta users, and the data and the feedback you get is going to be used to improve the service. You're going to use it to iterate on the service, okay? And once you have improved the service and you're confident, that you can run it or you can scale it up, then you take an assessment. You take a GDS assessment that you want to move into public beta. Yeah, and if that goes well, then you basically involve anyone who needs to use the service. That's what public beta is. Anyone that needs to use the service, you open it up to them and you let them use it, and you continue to learn and continue to gather the insights, and you continue to research, continue to test, and you want to make sure that you keep improving the service. Basically, this is your run-up into the live phase. So moving to live from public beta, before the service will move to the live phase, you want to show that you have used the beta phase to build a service that meets the needs that you've identified during discovery and during alpha. And then you have tested and you have iterated based on what you learned along the journey. Yeah, that's the crucial element here. You want to demonstrate that you've used the beta phase to build a service that meets the needs, identified the needs of the users now, identified at the discovery and the alpha phase, and then you've tested with them, and you've iterated based on the feedback. You've improved the service based on the feedback or the insight or the data that you've got throughout discovery, alpha, and beta phase. Yeah, so that's what you want to show as you progress your service from public beta into the live phase. All right, a quick announcement. We want people to come work with us as WayMaker Digital. Yeah, we are constantly looking for consultants to join us for different roles, ranging from product manager, business analysts, cybersecurity consultants, technical architects, user researchers, data analysts, scientists, delivery managers, scrum masters, UX designers, and user researchers, and so on and so forth. So please, if you are interested in working with us, we are always looking out for professionals and reputable individuals who we can work with to deploy them to our customer or client sites, or work remotely with our clients. So please, the email on the screen is careers@waymakerdigital.com. Drop us an email to say, I'm interested to work with WayMaker Digital, and then we'll give you access to this form to fill to provide your information, and then we take it forward from there. Please, the email address is careers@waymakerdigital.com. All right, let's talk about the live phase. The live phase is about continuous improvement. What is the live phase? The live phase in service delivery is about how do we support the service in a sustainable way whilst we continue to iterate and make service improvements. Yeah, it's about supporting the service in a way that allows us to continue making improvements to the service. You want to continue to address any constraints identified during beta. Yeah, you want to continue to develop the service and work with other organizations providing services that are part of the same journey, so that we are iterating towards solving a whole problem for users. Also, in this phase, you want to be running your service sustainably during live, and this does not necessarily mean that you need a complete or a whole agile team on the service compared to what it looked like in the beta phase. So that the size of a team required during live needs to be reviewed and discussed and assessed and agreed before well ahead of moving into the live phase. Also, there is an assessment, the live assessment at the end of a public beta phase that needs to be attended by the service, and you need the GDS team to provide the live assessment before the service can be allowed to move into public beta. So it's important that towards the end of beta, you want to spend time during the public beta working out what level of continuous improvement is required, or what level of continuous support is needed, and what resources are needed on the team in order to maintain and support the service, and then to continuously improve the service in the live phase. So, for example, the improvements that you would make during the live phase would have to be, number one, based on user research. You have to test. You have to test to make sure that they work with different browsers, different devices. So cross-browser testing, cross-device testing, accessibility testing, and quality assurance. These are really, really important considerations and improvements that are common or needs to be considered during the live phase of a service. And before the service moves to live, it's important that as a team or as a product manager or service owner or delivery team, in whatever capacity you are involved, you want to make sure that you have the metrics set up, the analytics, or whether it's Google Analytics, whether it's Power BI, whether it's Tableau, whatever reporting tool, the tool doesn't matter, but you want to make sure that the metrics are there so you can measure what success looks like. You can track performance. You can track whether, how users are engaging with the service, where people are dropping off, why are they dropping off, what improvements do we need to make, what changes do we need to make, or when we get change requests from other maybe consuming services, what do those change requests look like? How do we process those change requests while the service is still running? Do we have a downtime on the weekend, or whatever it is? You kind of need to think about how do we make sure that you can measure success consistently and continuously. You want to make sure that the service meets accessibility requirements, and also there's continuous performance testing in place. And of course, you want to make sure that you are able to maintain the quality of the service. So the service should be available all the time. You want to measure that, and you want to make sure that you can support users and whilst you're running, you want to put everything in place required to make sure that users are supported during the live running of a service. So yes, that's where I'm going to stop today. Thank you for joining, and I will see you again sometime soon. Take care now. Bye.